You wanted it to work. Not just wanted it. You needed it. Maybe not even for him, not for her, not for you two. You needed that to work. Because if it crumbled, you would crumble too. So you started to hold everything. The relationship, the other person, the time, the wounds, the promises, the pauses. You were holding on to both. But no one told you that when you hold on to something that isn't just yours, a part of you starts to slip away. And that's when you begin to lose yourself. First, in the small concessions. Next, in the silence that becomes the norm. In the words left unspoken. In the gaze that stops seeking. You stopped asking, does he still feel anything? And started wondering, am I being a burden? You stopped wanting to be seen and started fighting not to be left behind. And that's when it broke. Because love can be difficult, yes, but it should never demand your identity as the price of admission. The problem is that you confused effort with worthiness. You thought the more you gave in, the more space you'd have, and the harder you fought, the more love you'd receive. But love, real love, never puts you in that battle against yourself. You gave everything, expecting half. You hoped for reciprocity from someone who only saw you as a crutch. And when the other person faltered, guess who was holding everything up? You, always you, with both hands, with an open heart, with a shattered soul. You became a shelter, without a roof for yourself, without ground to rest on. You became the emotional mother of someone who never learned to take care of themselves, and you started living like a forgotten daughter of your own story. Have you noticed? The person who loves the most ends up being the one who negates themselves the most, and no one notices, because they've learned to smile through the pain, to hold things together with weakness, to say I'm fine with a heart in pieces. If this has ever happened to you, comment, I needed to hear this. But let me tell you something that no one has the courage to say, that love you were sustaining wasn't love. It was emotional attachment disguised as loyalty. It was emotional abandonment disguised as hope. It was need combined with guilt. It was the fear of losing someone who no longer gave themselves fully. You didn't want to be alone, but you already were. From the moment you fought alone, only you remembered, only you asked, only you forgave. And still, the guilt was yours, right? Because those who love too much blame themselves even for the other person's pain. They hold themselves responsible for mistakes they didn't make. They drag themselves through a relationship where they are just watched. You held on so tight that your fingers bled, and when you let go, you still thought you were doing something wrong. But look at me now. You're not wrong for letting go of what only you were holding. You're right for realizing that you lost yourself in the process. And when a woman loses herself, she doesn't need fixing. She needs truth. Have you been through this? Share with me in the comments, because what comes next is not about the other person. It's about what you're going to do with this absence and about the strength that no one saw being born. When everything seemed to be ending, do you remember the last time you felt whole? Maybe not, because you spent so much time trying to be the good one that you forgot what it was like to be yourself. You held back laughter to avoid bothering anyone. You held back tears to avoid dramatizing. You held back screams to avoid losing. But in the end, you lost anyway. You lost your voice, your lightness, your essence. You lost the sparkle in your eyes when you still believed that being too good was a virtue. But being too good, in the wrong places, only makes you the emotional doormat for those who don't know how to love. And you realized this too late, didn't you? Only after 1,000 accepted excuses. 1,000 disrespectful moments swallowed. 1,000 Sundays alone in your room trying to understand where you went wrong. You didn't go wrong. You just wanted too much from something that couldn't be sustained by desire alone. You only insisted where you should have let go. You tried to keep alive a love that had already died on the other side. And still, what was destroying you wasn't his absence. It was the emptiness inside you, for having stopped being who you were just to avoid being abandoned. The reality is that you abandoned yourself first, little by little, in layers, with beautiful justifications, lovely phrases, self-deception in the form of hope. You said, it'll get better. He's confused. I just need to be more understanding. And in that more, you became less joyful, less spontaneous, less you, because love shouldn't require your emotional mutilation. And now that you're here, wondering where you lost yourself, I'll tell you, you lost yourself the moment you stopped recognizing your own limits. You confused empathy with submission. You confused giving yourself fully with canceling yourself out. You confused connection with emotional dependence. And now you're tired. Tired of trying. Tired of justifying. Tired of being strong. But maybe what exhausts you isn't love. It's his absence. Because when it's real love, you don't have to carry everything alone. You don't have to convince yourself that everything is okay. Real love is light, even on heavy days. But what you experienced was imbalance disguised as romance. It was fear of being alone, masquerading as courage. It was emotional escape. And worst of all, you tried to adapt to unlove, thinking that's what love required. But true love doesn't demand that you die inside. Does this make sense to you so far? Write yes down below, and there's more. While you were holding everything together, nobody noticed that you were sinking. You smiled in front of others. But deep down, you cried for help. You posted beautiful quotes, but you wept in the shower. You questioned yourself in silence. You shrank inside. And the more you were silent, the more it seemed like the universe was testing you. But it wasn't a test, it was a lesson. It was a call for you to realize that the most urgent love wasn't his. It was yours. For yourself. For your story. For the woman you suffocated trying to please others. And that woman, she's coming back, stronger, clearer, more herself. The one who realized that no one is worth losing yourself for love. And deep down, you always knew. You've been through a lot. But now you've arrived here. At this very moment. At this point in the journey. Where there's no more noise. No justifications, no pleas, only the brutal realization you don't have to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to beg to be seen, you just need to come back. Come back to what's left of you, come back to the essence that survived it all, come back to the silence that heals rather than suffocates. The return is indeed solitary, but it's where you stop depending. It's where you understand that those who left you for feeling too much never had the courage to feel fully. And it's not your fault. You just love genuinely, and loving genuinely is not a mistake. The mistake is losing yourself trying to fit where you were never welcomed. So you stopped, took a deep breath, let go. Not because you were tired, but because you woke up. And now there's no more rush, no anger, no desperate pain, only clarity. You look back and don't hate yourself. You look at what was and give thanks, not because it was good, but because it taught you who you no longer want to be. The one who erased herself, the one who pleaded for answers, the one who accepted little to avoid having nothing. That is in the past. Today, you realize. You see who you are, what you deserve, and what you will never accept again. You understand that you didn't come to this world to be anyone's emotional crutch. You are not the therapist for an immature man. You are not the cure for someone who doesn't want to heal. You are not a home for those who only know how to run away. You are presence. You are strength. You are pause. And those who don't know how to be do not deserve to return. If this text moved you, write one word below that defines you now, and never forget, when you let go of what wasn't only yours and you lose nothing, you recover, and that is everything. You realized, didn't you, the love you were looking for from others. It was the love you hadn't yet learned to give to yourself. You wanted to be embraced, but you kept judging yourself. You wanted to be heard, but you silenced even your own intuition. You wanted to be cared for, but you always put yourself last whenever someone asked for something. And the truth that no one says, but that you've already begun to realize, is that you always knew you weren't truly loved. Deep down, in the unspoken nuances of touch, in the tone of voice that changed, in the way he forgot you, you knew, but you preferred to deceive yourself, because the silence of absence hurt less than the truth of rejection. But now there's no turning back. You've already crossed the desert. You've already screamed alone in the middle of the night. You've already rebuilt yourself in silence, while everyone thought you were just doing too well. No one saw, but you remade yourself, in tears, in prayers, in promises made to yourself, and today you feel, you realize, that what they called a relationship was in fact an emotional battlefield, where you loved and he resisted. You gave, he demanded. You sought presence and received absence disguised as space, and you tried to understand, tried not to be heavy, tried to accept less, but something inside you was screaming, even when you insisted on staying quiet. It was your soul. It was your identity wanting to return. Today that scream has turned into solid silence, a peace that needs no proof, a presence that doesn't seek validation. You no longer need to be chosen, because now you have chosen yourself. And when a woman chooses herself, there's no man, word, compliment, or promise that can make her retreat. It's as if the universe says, now you are ready, ready to receive what is yours, ready to live lightly, without sacrifice, without begging, without diminishing yourself. Did you feel this call? Then answer me here. When was the last time you truly chose yourself? Share in the comments. You are not alone, because now you no longer carry fear, you carry clarity. Do you know what hurt you more? It wasn't his absence. It was his presence without commitment. It was the body there, but the soul was distant. It was the good morning without sincerity. The I miss you without action. It was the gaze that passed over you without noticing anything. You were screaming inside, see me, but he only knew how to see himself, and now you begin to understand the absurdity of it all. You were asking for crumbs, for attention, for time, for presence, for affection, as if you were the problem, as if you were the one being excessive, too intense, too sensitive, the one who overdoes it. But you realize that all you were asking for was the bare minimum. You just wanted to be felt, and that was never asking too much. Those who love feel, those who love notice, those who love don't need to be reminded all the time to care. But now you stopped asking. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped trying to convince someone who never truly wanted to understand you. And in that space that remained, you looked at yourself with new eyes. You treated yourself with the kindness you always desired. You listened to yourself without rushing. You embraced yourself like no one ever did for you. You became a shelter, but this time, for yourself. And you discovered that the world doesn't collapse when you stop propping others up. It simply reorganizes. Now you walk lighter, with a less burdened soul, with clearer emotions, and with the certainty that love doesn't hurt. What hurts are the ties based on fear. Do you realize that? So write down, now I understand what true love is, because you understood. What once seemed like a lack was just a liberation. What once felt like abandonment was in fact a realignment with who you are. You no longer need to ask for permission to exist, neither in relationships, nor in family, nor in any environment. You simply are, and that's enough. And if someone doesn't know how to handle your whole presence, then they need to learn to live with your absence. Do you know what's stronger than shouting? Silencing, not the silence that pleads, but the one that defines, the one that sets boundaries, the one that closes cycles without making a noise. You're tired of explaining, tired of trying, tired of letting people know what hurts. Now you just withdraw. And that is your answer. Because anyone who loses a woman like you doesn't lose by chance. They lose because they ignored all the signs, all the attempts, all the times you stayed when you should have left. And now that you're gone, there's no turning back. Do you understand? Not everything that ends has failed. Some things end because they finally fulfilled their purpose. You learned what you needed. About the other person, about yourself, about what you will never accept again, and that is victory. Your absence now carries the weight of all your ignored attempts, of all the Sundays filled with silent tears, of all the deleted messages, of the words you never said, out of fear of losing. But now you realize you didn't lose. You returned to yourself, and that is everything. Now life realigns. People who resonate on the same frequency begin to appear. Relationships start to form where you don't have to explain yourself, where you aren't too much, because your intensity was never too much. It was just misunderstood. Now, you no longer negotiate your truth, and whoever wants to be by your side will need to know how to handle the woman who returned whole. You don't have to go back to any place where you had to beg to be seen, nor insist on ties where your intensity was treated as an inconvenience. Your presence isn't a burden. Your affection isn't an exaggeration. You were just in the wrong place, giving yourself to someone who couldn't even stand on their own. Now, whoever wants to be with you will have to be whole, nothing less. Because you learned. Love that demands you abandon yourself and isn't love. It's emotional imprisonment with a pretty name, and you don't fit into that anymore. You won't stay silent to keep anyone close, nor shrink to fit in another's absence. You've come back to your light, to your intuition, to your truth. And from now on, whoever remains stays because they recognize you, and not because they manipulate you. You are home, but you're no one's hostage. It's a giving, but it's not a renunciation of self. You are a pause, but you are also a pulse. You are silence, but you are also a scream. You are love, but first and foremost, for yourself. If this resonated with you, comment, "I needed to hear this." Because the next step is learning to receive the right love from a place that starts and ends with you.